Sagittarius is the tireless traveler of the Zodiac wheel, bold, curious, and always chasing something greater than themselves. But behind that thirst for freedom and blazing fire lies a deeper, more layered soul that few truly see. These traits aren't just pretty things to admire. They're real powers, capable of transforming not only their own path but also the lives of those who walk beside them. Some of these will catch you off guard, some will leave you speechless, and one, just one, might forever change the way you see them. You're about to discover 21 hidden strengths buried deep within a Sagittarius. Truths not everyone can see, but once you do, you can never unsee them. Some will make you nod in knowing agreement, others will invite you to reflect on your own journey, and number 3 might make you never look at Sagittarius the same way again. Before we begin, if you feel like it, drop your zodiac sign and birth date in the comments below. Who knows, someone just like you might be here too, waiting to hear exactly what they needed to hear. And now, let's begin. 1. Broken, but never for long. Sagittarius is the kind of person who can fall apart in silence but refuses to stay down for long. They're born with a strange kind of strength. The harder they fall, the farther they rise. In the middle of the storm, they don't call for help. They quietly get up and keep moving on their own. Jupiter, their ruling planet, seems to whisper, "It's okay, just keep going. The light will return." And when they do return, they're never the same. They come back brighter and stronger than ever. As a mutable fire sign, Sagittarius survives by moving. Staying still too long extinguishes their inner flame. Jupiter fuels them with faith. That's why they never stay with pain for too long. They're always heading towards something greater ahead. 2. Loving, like a Sagittarius, unbound but never shallow. They don't try to control others, and they won't let anyone control them. But when they love, Sagittarius does it with deep admiration and unshakable trust. They want you to be fully yourself, just as they love themselves, freely, without pretense or confinement. Love to them doesn't mean clinging, it must be real. And if forced to choose between love and freedom, they'll choose freedom, not because they don't love you, but because they can't stop loving their truest self. Freedom is a core imprint in the Sagittarian psyche. When they feel controlled, they lose connection not only with you, but with themselves. They need to love in open space, where both people grow, not shrink just to fit. 3. Optimistic. Not because they're naive, but because they choose survival. You see them laughing and think everything is light, but in truth they've stood at the edge of collapse more times than you can count. They choose light not because it's easy, but because they know if they stop believing in something better, they'll be consumed. They move, they wander, not to escape, but to breathe. For Sagittarius, movement is survival. It keeps their spirit from fading away. In astrology, Sagittarius is heavily influenced by Jupiter, the planet of hope and belief. They need to see that light at the end of the tunnel to carry on. Motion itself is their emotional medicine, regenerating their will to live. 4. Their love for animals, a wild part of their soul. When Sagittarius loves an animal, it's not just a cute moment, it's deep empathy for a free spirit being confined. They can't bear to see animals tamed, caged, or stripped of their instincts, because that's their own greatest fear. They feel for the voiceless because they see themselves in them, a wild soul that never wants to be domesticated. Their gentleness doesn't come from weakness, but from raw compassion. To Sagittarius, animals are not just companions, they are symbols of untamed freedom. When they see life being caged, they feel like they're being locked up too. It's the natural reaction of a soul born to remain unbound. 5. Sagittarius women. They don't lead with power, but with presence. She doesn't need to speak loudly to be heard. She doesn't need to claim space to be noticed. Wherever she is, there is motivation, inspiration, and a desire to live fully. She influences not through control, but through the pure radiance of her honesty and passion. She doesn't lead to dominate, she leads to ignite a kind of courage in others they didn't know they had. She's the kind of woman who makes others want to grow, not because they're being told to, but because they've been inspired. In natal charts, Sagittarius women often carry a fire-transmitting energy from Jupiter and their fire element. They don't teach people what to do, they live so authentically that others want to live like them. They lead not with orders, but with the rhythm of a life that truly means something. 6. To keep a Sagittarius, you must accept them exactly as they are. You can't teach a Sagittarius how to love. You can't mold them into the version of a partner you think they should be. They live by their own rhythm, fast, instinctive, and unapologetically real. They don't need someone to make them better. They need someone who embraces their impulsiveness, blunt honesty, and one-of-a-kind energy. When they're free to be themselves, they'll love with full-hearted passion. But if you try to make them change, they'll slip away, as quietly as a breeze. Keeping a Sagittarius isn't about trying harder. It's about letting them breathe freely inside love itself. Sagittarius is a mutable sign. They learn through experience, not restraint. Trying to fix them only pushes them to hide their truest self. They stay only when they feel safe to be fully seen. 7. For them, freedom is non-negotiable. Don't try to bargain with a Sagittarius using phrases like, "If you love me, then don't do this," or "couples are supposed to." They don't buy into love that smells like restriction or blind sacrifice. To them, freedom isn't recklessness. It's refusing to lose themselves in anyone. When you respect their space, their thoughts, their direction, they stay. But if you expect them to shrink to fit love, they'll walk away, swiftly, directly, without a backward glance. For Sagittarius, freedom isn't a preference, it's a condition for existence. In love, they must be themselves, not the version you wish they were. When suffocated, they don't fight back, they disappear. 8. A little wild, but easy to love. Sagittarius radiates a kind of energy that's hard to define, part impulsive, part deeply rational, part rebellious, part endlessly kind. One minute they'll say something that makes your jaw drop, and 5 seconds later you're laughing out loud. Their wild isn't chaotic, it simply softens the tension, the seriousness, the coldness. They make people feel lighter, like the world is heavy enough, so why not let it be a little more fun when they're around? Jupiter gifts them with a philosophical sense of humor, jokes that carry meaning, playfulness that reveals life's truths. They use their crazy to lift others out of heaviness. And that's exactly why people adore them, even when they're not trying. 9. Can't keep up? They'll leave, even if they care. Sagittarius doesn't move slowly. They don't linger long for those not ready to move forward. They think fast, live fast, and chase life like a grand expedition, not a place to get stuck. They won't be angry if you can't keep up, but they won't wait either. And by the time you realize you've lost them, they'll likely be somewhere else, living a new chapter with someone who moves at their pace. As a fire sign driven to expand, Sagittarius can't survive stagnant energy. They need a partner to grow with, not one who holds them back. And if you stay rooted in place, they'll move on. It's not cruelty, it's instinct. 10. When a Sagittarius cries, it means they just can't hold it in anymore. Don't mistake their laughter for lack of feeling. Sagittarius swallows more emotion than you know. Pain, disappointment, being misunderstood, but eventually the weight becomes too much and they cry. Quietly, without asking for comfort. The tears just need to fall so they can breathe and keep going. Sagittarius doesn't fear breaking down. What they fear is carrying too much and having no one notice. In astrology, Sagittarians often mask emotions through action and humor, but when their inner world becomes overloaded, tears are the only release. It's not weakness, it's instinctive healing. 11. Sagittarius is highly social but never superficial. They show up at many gatherings, can vibe with all kinds of people, and talk effortlessly, even with strangers. But don't be mistaken, it's not empty small talk. They genuinely listen, they genuinely care, and they always remember little things about you that you thought no one noticed. To them, every encounter is a door to a new world. And the most remarkable part? You always feel lighter around them, whether you're close or not. To Sagittarius, conversation is a way to explore humanity, not a social strategy. They connect from real curiosity, not hidden agendas, and that sincerity is what makes people naturally open up. 12. They don't follow rules because they live by their own. Sagittarius has no interest in templates. They don't do things just because everyone else does, and they don't accept soulless rules. They create their own value system, their own path, and stick to it, even if it means walking alone. To them, being real matters more than being right. And that stubbornness, rooted in conviction, is what makes them different and more trustworthy than anyone blindly following the crowd. As the sign of the 9th house, the house of personal truth, Sagittarius always acts based on what they believe is right. They'd rather face opposition than betray their beliefs. And often, without meaning to, they become trailblazers. 13. Wherever Sagittarius is, the room feels lighter. They don't shine in a flashy way, but their presence is unmistakable. Their laughter is real, their sharing is sincere, and they don't hesitate to be silly just to lift the mood. They hate fake tension, hate heavy atmospheres, so they always try to bring people up from emotional dead weight. And the best part is, they don't do it to be liked. They do it because they genuinely want everyone to breathe easier in this world. Jupiter gives Sagittarius a natural field of positive energy. They radiate warmth without trying. Other people's joy fuels their own. And they live by a quiet principle. If you can make things lighter, don't make them heavier. 14. Hard to change, but once they do, it's profound. Sagittarius can be stubborn. They trust their own views, follow their own way, so changing them isn't easy. The more you push, the more they resist. But if, at some point, they open up from within and decide to change, it's not because of anyone else. It's because they chose to, and when they change, it's all in. They turn the page completely and never look back. It's not just growth, it's a powerful kind of rebirth. They're a fire sign, proud, strong-willed, so when they change it comes from conscious choice, not pressure. That's why it lasts. And when it happens, they move forward as if nothing is weighing them down. 15. They're blunt, so blunt you won't see it coming. Sagittarius doesn't sugarcoat, they don't flatter. They don't spend energy trying to say things the right way. What they think they say, what they see is wrong. They call out, not with malice, not to provoke, just because they see the truth and it slips out. You might get mad at first, but eventually you'll realize having someone who tells you the truth is one of the most valuable things in life. Their bluntness comes from Jupiter, the planet of truth and justice. They don't speak to hurt, they speak to clarify. And while their words might sting, they're rarely false. 16. Don't try to threaten a Sagittarius. The more pressure, the more they ignite. You can't use anger or control to force a Sagittarius to change. They might go quiet for a moment, but that's when the fire starts burning within. The more they're cornered, the more fiercely they push back. With words, with actions, or by disappearing from your life without warning. They don't fight to win, they resist to preserve who they are. And once they rise, you'll see Sagittarius isn't easily intimidated, isn't easily subdued, and certainly doesn't forgive the feeling of being controlled. As a fire sign ruled by Jupiter, Sagittarius can't stand coercive energy. They need to be inspired by ideals, not pressured. And when pushed too far, their instinct is complete withdrawal. 17. They were born to decide for themselves, not be led. They don't like being told what to do, and they especially don't like following a path someone else laid out for them. They'll listen, they'll consider, but in the end, they'll choose their own way. even if it's winding, even if no one else understands. They trust their inner compass more than any external logic, and strangely enough, that self-trust often leads them to succeed in ways no one sees coming, not because they follow the rules, but because they don't. Jupiter gives Sagittarius a strong pull toward inner guidance over outside direction. They learn through first-hand experience, mistakes and all. They don't need a mapped-out route. What they need is a reason to move forward. 18. Talking like a Sagittarius, fun on the surface, full of meaning underneath. Think they're just joking? Think again. Sagittarius uses humor to explore, to speak truth without hurting, to drop serious truths in playful wrappers. When they tease you, they're watching your response. When they make you laugh, there's often something buried in the words. And because their jokes aren't sharp or threatening, people often open up to them more than they would to a trained therapist. Their humor is a form of emotional protection, gently reaching out while still keeping space. Jupiter gives them the gift of truth-telling without injury. They use laughter to heal, not to deflect. 19. The more they move, the brighter they become. Sagittarius can't handle standing still, not because they lack patience, but because they can't breathe when stuck. They need to move, to learn, to collide, not just with their feet, but with their heart and mind. Every place they go, every person they meet, every experience they live, it all brings them closer to understanding themselves, and that movement shapes their growth in a unique way, not through theory or textbooks, but through real-life exploration and ever-changing landscapes. To Sagittarius, learning doesn't happen at a desk. It happens on the road. Movement keeps their life force flowing, their curiosity alive, and their inner freedom intact. Hold them in place too long and they stop being themselves. 20. They speak truth, but not to wound. Sagittarius doesn't speak to harm. They just don't know how to pretend, and they're not used to saying things they don't truly believe. Their words might sting, but they sting in a way that helps you see clearly, not to bring you down. To them, truth is the only real way people can truly understand one another. So even if it gets them misunderstood, they'd rather say it straight, because at least then, you know they're never lying to you. For Sagittarius, truth isn't a social tactic, it's a principle. Jupiter gives them faith that honesty is always better than avoidance. They're not here to please, they're here to stay honest with themselves. 21. They walk away, not out of boredom, but because they're no longer themselves. One of Sagittarius's most underrated powers is their ability to walk away without looking back. They might be in love, deeply connected, laughing like nothing's wrong, but if that space no longer aligns with their spirit, they'll leave, quietly, without warning. They'll exit like a gust of wind changing course. They don't leave because they're tired, they leave because staying one moment longer would mean losing who they are. And to Sagittarius, losing themselves is never an option. Their departure isn't an escape, it's a vow to stay true to their soul. They belong to freedom, to the journey, to places that feed the ever-growing fire inside them. Staying isn't always love. Sometimes loving themselves means knowing when to leave. These 21 powers aren't something Sagittarius tries to create. They're embedded in their very nature. A mutable fire sign ruled by Jupiter, they weren't born to stay still or fit in. They were born to illuminate. By walking through uncertainty with their whole being, you can't tame a Sagittarius. But if you're open-hearted enough, they'll show you. Freedom isn't loneliness, it's the courage to live truthfully and love authentically. Sagittarius knows that real strength isn't in never being hurt, but in choosing to live on, to move forward, even when the pain lingers, even when the path is unclear. They fall, but never deny the lesson. They get hurt, but never use it as an excuse to shut their hearts. They keep smiling, keep living, keep believing in their own way, and that ability to keep going is what makes them unlike anyone else. And even if the world doesn't always understand them, Sagittarius keeps moving, because the one thing they'll never betray is themselves. They don't need to be the most perfect sign in the zodiac. They just need to be who they are. Free, stubborn, fierce, and forever searching for something beyond themselves. That's why Sagittarius can never be replaced. Not because they're always right, but because they're always real.